Hello, welcome back to blood, and now we've talked about what we find inside blood, both on the formed element side and the plasma side. We're now going to consider what happens when a blood vessel or tissue around a blood vessel is damaged. And that's what we call hemostasis. So there we have our hemostasis. Now there are really three phases to when blood actually clots. And let's keep in mind that this process is an example of positive feedback. So as the stimulus comes in, it increases and increases until you get a major event, which is the formation of the clot, or the static part of the blood, meaning it stopped flowing in that area. So what do we have? Well, we have the start part of a platelet plug formation. So platelets, remember, part of the formed elements of the blood, are involved right at the first part. And I put that as PPF as a shorthand for that. That leads to a vascular spasm, and that leads to a clotting cascade. Now the clotting cascade results in a common pathway, which results in the clot itself. But to get to that common pathway, you can have an intrinsic, meaning within the blood, or an extrinsic, meaning from the tissues, way of actually creating that. And at the 200 level, I'm showing you the main features. I'm not looking at every factor and how one factor relates to another factor. That's for higher levels than what we're looking at now. So our platelet plug formation, if it's intrinsically stimulated, comes from a break in the blood vessel itself and the release of something called the Hagemann factor. The other thing that stimulates the platelet plug to form is literally the exposure underneath the endothelium, which is very smooth. And underneath that endothelium you've got collagen connective tissue, which is very charged. Now the platelets are very attracted to that, and so they start clumping in and around this exposed collagen, and that makes them sticky and it makes them release chemicals such as serotonin. And this all results in a vascular spasm. So you've got a normal diameter of the blood vessel there before, and then once it's actually damaged, the release of the chemicals causes a spasm which narrows off the blood vessel, reducing the amount of blood flowing through that damaged vessel to therefore reduce the loss of blood from the damage. Now on the extrinsic side, you end up with a vascular spasm because you've activated your platelet plug formation, but this time it's not been done from anything inside the blood vessel. It comes from the release of a chemical from damaged cells called thromboplastin, and this isn't present in the blood. So when the tissues near the blood vessel has been damaged, it can release thromboplastin and cause this whole process to kick off that way. So once we get to our vascular spasm, we're now looking at the intrinsic and extrinsic clotting pathways, which are quite involved, but that results in the final pathway, or the common pathway, for whichever way it's been initiated. And this is really quite straightforward. We've got a prothrombin activator molecule which is stimulated, and that cleaves prothrombin into the active version thrombin. And this enzyme is able to take fibrinogen, which, if you remember from our last talk looking at plasma, is already in the blood, and it cleaves the fibrinogen and makes it active fibrin. And it's the fibrin which then, kind of almost like duct tape, goes across the platelet plug to the edges of the damage of the wall, and then contracts, pulls everything in tight, and creates the sealed clot. And it's only when we get to this stage here do we actually stop blood loss from the damaged vessel. If we're just relying on platelet plug formation, that will slow down blood loss, but it won't completely stop it. So that is the very basis of hemostasis. I won't overcomplicate it any more than that, so thanks.